This is the sixth lecture on continuity. In the last class, we had seen up to this that a topological definition of continuity. Now, the point is, why do we need to do this definition? The biggest influence of this theorem is that this one talks about continuity without talking about distances. Realize this thing. This is an extremely important observation. This theorem talks about continuity without talking about distances. You see, in the earlier definitions of continuity, be it a sequential definition where f of xn converged to fc, or the usual definition of continuity where we straight away talked about the distances, this definition does not involve any concept of distances. Now, why do we need to define continuity without any distance, any concept of distance? The answer is real analysis is the very first course in analyzing functions with all the geometric properties. Here, we talk about functions with both their domain and codomain as the set of all real numbers, and we exploit all possible properties of this set to make the study of functions or of different subsets of it to become as rich and generalized as possible. But as we progress, people realize that real analysis is not the end of the road. If we sacrifice some of the properties of the set of all real numbers, the study of analysis generalizes itself to include more meaningful spaces in its course. We call that a metric space. If we expand our horizon even further, we land in the universe of topological spaces. During the process of transition from real analysis to metric spaces, we keep the notion of distance with us and modify it to include more examples. In that process, though, we lose the algebraic properties of the real numbers and the completeness property as well, at least at first, then we make it up with some other means. Similarly, when we move to topological spaces from metric spaces, we even lose the concept of distances. In a topological space, we only have an abstract collection of subsets of the space known as the open sets. But as far as we go, we never forget our roots. We do not call something as something if that is not the same thing in the earlier course. For example, the set of all real numbers as we study it now are examples of both a metric space and a topological space. So if I accept something as the definitions of continuous functions in those spaces, then those definitions better be in compliance with the definition of continuous functions in real analysis as well. That is where this theorem finds its importance. This provides a necessary and sufficient condition for a function to be continuous without talking about distances and only in terms of open sets. This is true in real analysis only as a theorem, but we take this statement as the definition of continuity in topological spaces. Okay, let me read the theorem once for the recording purpose. A real valued function defined over the entire real line is continuous over entire R if and only if for every open set G of R, F inverse G is open in R. So it is like, here is your G, the open set. You take any point in G. So that looks like fx because we are talking about f inverse G. So any point in G looks like a point fx, since G is an open set and fx is a point. So this is a interior point and it has got a neighborhood around it. Okay, so the neighborhood, this entire neighborhood gets pulled back by f to the point x and something over there as well. Okay, and this is f inverse G. This entire ellipse is f inverse G, and this ball is an interior point. So this will be an interior point of f inverse G that we will see in the detail. Yeah, the first point I want to make over here is, do you see any difference in the figure? From the figures you have seen me drawing in earlier occasions. Here are some pictures I had drawn earlier. So the major difference over here, this one and this one. This one is drawn in the setup of real analysis with x-axis and y-axis, and the neighborhoods of the point C is along x-axis, the neighborhoods of FC is along the y-axis, and everything so nice and proper with the setup of real analysis. Over here, this one does not care about any axis or anything of that sort. It denotes the set as a lump of area. Why did I choose this picture over here? Because this is a topological picture. the one that I showed you, this one, definition of continuity, because this is the definition of continuity in the real analysis, and so that is why this picture is very much applicable in that scenario. This picture of continuity is not valid in the topological scenario. Topology is a more abstract study of analysis. So there are sets, and those sets I'm just denoting them by Venn diagrams as we usually do. So let's start with proof of necessary part. So let F be continuous over R. This is my conclusion. I'm assuming this, and we want to show that for every open set G, F inverse G must be open. So we start with an open set G. Fine. So this is my open set G. Fine. Very good. If F inverse G is phi, we are done. G may not come from the range of fx is sin f and G is -5 to -3. So this is outside of the range of sine. So therefore, if I write F inverse of this set -5, -3, so there is no point there. This has to be empty set. If F inverse G is phi, we are done. We do not have anything to do with that. But if not, choose a point X in F inverse G, arbitrary. This is my G, and this set is the collection of pre-images of the points from G by the function F. So this is F inverse G. My premise is this set G is an open set, and this gets pulled back by the function F to this set. And we want to show this one is an open set as well. We have chosen any arbitrary point X in the F inverse G. We need to show, to say F inverse G is open, the point X is an interior point of F inverse G. So therefore, X in F inverse G, so Fx is in G. Since G is open, Fx will have a cushion around it. Fx will have a neighborhood around it, which is entirely inside G. So this X is mapped to Fx by F. Since it has landed on an open set, Fx will have a neighborhood around it. So the neighborhood is, there exists an epsilon x greater than 0 such that the epsilon x neighborhood of Fx is entirely inside G. So since F is continuous at X, for this epsilon x greater than 0, we will find a delta positive such that the entire delta x ball around X, the functional values will be ending up within this. So that is, for all x dashed in the delta x neighborhood of X, Fx dashed minus Fx, the distance will be smaller than epsilon x. This epsilon x exists by the openness of the set G. Now this epsilon x then again determines a delta x, which is a neighborhood of X, such that for all points in the neighborhood, all x dashed from the delta x neighborhood of X, mod of Fx dashed minus Fx is less than epsilon x. Now, this n epsilon x of Fx, this is a subset of G. For every point from this ball, the functional values end up inside this ball. This ball is inside G completely. So all the functional values from this ball will end up inside G as well. So that is why this entire set is there inside F inverse G. All the points of this ball, they are pre-images of the points from G. Hence, this entire ball in delta x around X is a subset of F inverse G. So this shows that X is an interior point of F inverse G, and since X is arbitrary, F inverse G is open. Okay, so that was necessary part. Now let's jump into the sufficient part. So here we have the condition that for any open subset G of R, F inverse G is open. Now we need to prove that F is continuous at the point X. So here we will choose our G wisely to achieve our goal. Fine. So now choose X, any arbitrary point in the domain of F, and then consider its image. So this is your X and this is your Fx. Then for any epsilon positive, the epsilon radius open ball around Fx, that is an open set, the open interval Fx minus epsilon to Fx plus epsilon. Okay. This looks a little bit different in this topological picture, but in real analysis, this is basically the open interval Fx minus epsilon to Fx plus epsilon. And that is an open set in R. Now, by the condition given, the F inverse of this ball will be an open set. So F inverse of this ball is also open. That goes by the condition given there. Clearly, X definitely belongs to this set of all pulled back pre-images. Okay, this is your G. You're considering this epsilon radius open ball around Fx as your G open set. So this F inverse G is again open. X definitely belongs to there because Fx belongs to this epsilon ball. Therefore, X definitely is a pre-image of Fx. So X definitely belongs to F inverse of the epsilon neighborhood of Fx. Now, what do we have is this F inverse G is an open set. So therefore, this X is an interior point. Therefore, X will have some neighborhood around it inside this F inverse G. So therefore, X is an interior point, and consequently, we find the delta positive such that the delta neighborhood of X is entirely inside this F inverse G, F inverse of epsilon neighborhood of Fx. So this implies that we are talking about the notation of range of a subset of the domain. So this is a subset of the domain, the delta neighborhood of X, and we are talking about the functional values from that point. So functional values from this point is a subset of in epsilon Fx. This is simply followed from this fact that the delta neighborhood of X is inside F inverse of in epsilon of Fx. Therefore, as epsilon is arbitrary, F is continuous at X. Clearly, you realize that for any point x dash in the delta neighborhood of X, the functional value f of x dash lands in the epsilon neighborhood of Fx. That is, the distance between Fx and Fx dash becomes smaller than epsilon. And that is the definition of continuity at the point X. Since X is arbitrary point, arbitrarily chosen, F is continuous over entire R. So after this, we have a corollary to this theorem. The corollary is very simple, that why should open sets have all the fun? The same statement is true for closed sets as well. And this is also a topological equivalent definition of continuity. That the same thing happens with closed sets. For every closed set, f of R, f inverse, f is the function, small f is the function, small f inverse of capital F is closed in R. And the proof is extremely simple using the earlier theorem. Observe that f inverse R minus F is R minus F inverse F. So this is F inverse A complement is equals to F inverse A whole complement. Also, F is closed if and only if its complement is open. Fine. Then F is continuous over R is by implied by for every open set G in R, F inverse G is open. That is by the earlier theorem. Now, if we write F as the complement of G, then R minus F is complement of F, that is complement of complement to G, that is G itself. So I have just written G as F complement. That's it. So for this line, for every open set G of R, F inverse G is open in R. This is again by implied by for every R minus F open in R, F inverse of R minus F open in R. But this is again by implied by R minus F open. So that is F is closed, and over here F inverse of R minus F, F inverse of capital F complement, that is F inverse of capital F whole complement. By this statement, F inverse of capital F complement is F inverse of capital F whole complement. So when F inverse of capital F complement was open, that is F inverse of capital F whole complement is open. So this means F inverse of capital F is closed in R. And since F is closed if and only if its complement is open, for every closed set F in R, F inverse of capital F is also closed in R. And this is by implied by F is continuous over R.